Welcome to another episode of the S.E.M podcast. Jack Bryce, Zach Hewlett back again. And tonight we're joined by the famous Sister Catherine Larson, was Sister McConkie in Scotland. That's how we'd know her. And she was on a few weeks ago with Jade and then forgot how to get on tonight.
I'm not going to lie, my son got me off. I know, you guys.
It's all good. It's all good. All right. Well, we start out with how you ended up in Scotland, what that story is, and then we'll skip over and talk about what you've been up to since. And then we'll go back and reminisce for a little bit. So if you want to start us out with how you ended up on a mission.
Okay. So my whole life I had spent praying that I would go on. My dad had always, as a little kid, bless you, get married in the temple, go on a mission, kind of this rote thing, right? So as I got older, I always had said, I'm going to go on a mission. I'm going to go on a mission. But as I got closer and closer, I think the nerves kind of set in. Am I really going to? And I was dating someone at the time, who's now my husband. And we had been dating for, I don't even know how long, maybe like a year. And I was like, well, I'm going to go on a mission someday. I'm going to go on a mission someday, and it's going to be so fun. I'm so excited. And he kept saying, I don't know if fun is the way I would describe it. I'm like, oh, no. It's going to be fun. I'm so excited. And he kept telling me this. And I was like, that's because you don't want me to go on a mission. You want me to stay home and get married. And I'm not going to get married yet. I'm not ready. I'm going on a mission. And obviously, as I got on the mission, I did realize maybe fun wouldn't be the first description of a mission. It'd be up there, but maybe that wouldn't be the first description. So, yep. As I kind of got closer, I had kind of sent off another missionary. And my boyfriend, who was now my husband, Christian, he's like, stay home, in more or less words. He had just gotten home from his mission and we dated a year. But I was like, no, I then started to pray for the desire to go on a mission. Because at that point I felt like I was supposed to go. I knew I was supposed to go. I just wanted the desire to go. So I waited just a few months, put in my papers, and got my call to Scotland, which I was really excited because I've got a lot of family history in Scotland. So obviously my maiden name's McConkie. That's where my McConkie line had come through. And one of my dad's uncles was a mission president there. So there was a lot of history there. So I got my call and told my boyfriend at the time, I said, you know what? If it's meant to be, it'll work out. And if it's not, then find somebody and it'll all just work itself out. And I left.
Wow. Nice. What was the timing of that? When did you head out?
I left in April. And so, and I'd actually done an internship in Washington, D.C. right before that. So I came home, put in my papers in the spring, and then left early, I guess winter, then left in April. April 2003. So, yeah.
Cool. All right. So take us to when you got home. You already gave us a spoiler alert. Your husband was your boyfriend. So
yes. So I came home, kind of was in the same debate. I think my home mission, if it's meant to be, it's going to work out the way it's supposed to. But he did write me my home mission, and I came home, dated. He dated other people. I still wasn't quite ready to get married. And then I guess the next year, we decided to get married, and then we eventually have 4 kids now. So I was just listening to Breadlows and Vertigum, and I was or Vertigum, maybe that's how you say it. And I had to laugh because all of our kids, all the missionaries around the same time have kids the same age. So I have a 15-year-old boy, I have a 12-year-old girl, a 9-year-old boy, and a 6-year-old girl. So
How'd you pull that off? Every other.
I know, right?
Hopefully that brings some balance to your household.
Yeah.
That's good. for the most part.
Yeah. So, yeah.
That's great. And you're still living in Utah?
Still living in Utah. I'm in the Salt Lake Holladay area. And yeah, we've lived here forever. We've been in my ward area for a long time. So, yeah, we're still here. And I can blame Sister McGowan for me being underprepared today. They've been in town, and I was like, "Oh yeah, come over. It's okay. I'll have time to like prepare and read over it." And not as much time as I thought. So, here's what it is.
She's been in Utah pretty much since we talked to her last.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's been fun. I can
All right. So we'll go back now to Scotland. You can start with the MTC or the mission, wherever you want, and we'll just walk through areas, companions, and memories you've got.
Okay. I know. All these journals, and I was like, this is going to take too long to read all this.
An open book. It's an open book test, though.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so I went into the MTC, and as I was looking through pictures, I realized that I had a lot more people that had come out with me than I even remember, because at that time, you don't really know anybody. So my companion went to Ireland, who was in the MTC with me, Sister Davies, and we got along really, really well. Maybe too well, actually. I think we got in trouble for laughing like pretty much the whole time, like literally reprimanded. At one point, I was like saying a prayer in one of the, or someone else was saying a prayer actually in one of the MTC, like in a class. And they finally were like, Sister McConkie, can you leave? I was like, you want me to leave? They're like, because I couldn't stop laughing. They're like, you need to leave the room. You need to get up and walk out of the room. I was like, oh, okay. Because it was hard to sit still so long. And so we would you'd sit still as much as you could. And then we'd go back up to our room and I would go crazy. Like we'd do aerobics and like dance parties. And one night we decided it was a good idea with the elders to sneak downstairs and try to get cookies, which was probably not a good idea, but we really just wanted cookies. So we all like snuck down. Somehow like more and more people showed up. I know the MTC president eventually showed up, but by then we were already running back to the room. And then we felt really guilty and spent a lot of time worried that there were cameras, kind of like James Bond type, like there weren't. This was the MTC like in the early 2000s. There were definitely not cameras like we thought, but we thought we were caught that way. And they did tell us, like, Sister McConkie, you need to have more quiet dignity and stop laughing so much. So I had to calm it down a little, but I couldn't help it. And so that carried on throughout my mission, actually. So we had a good time, though. I had a really good time in the MTC. I learned a lot. I think I went out with like Gilmore, who I actually just listened to his, Breach, Whitbeck, Grant, Brown. Do you remember Brown and Menino? Yeah. And so we all went in at the same time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have connections with your MTC group still? Because there's a few of those we haven't been able to get in touch with.
No.
Gilmore wasn't in your group. He trained Grant from your group.
Okay, that's why. Because I was with Grant when he came, and then that's why he was in the picture. I was like, I know Gilmore well. Breach and Whitbeck for sure came out with me, and Grant. And I think Menino did actually too. Right.
Good group.
Yeah, it was a good group.
Yeah, it was good. And then I think Ostler, but I think he actually went home. I remember Grant and Ostler wanted to both go home. Grant stayed, obviously.
Sort of.
And then came back quickly, though. And then Ostler, I think, went home. if I'm correct, I think he went home for maybe not on the best circumstances, if we put it that way. So he didn't stay out. I don't think he stayed out much at all. So, anyways, so it was good. I started my area then in Aberdeen, and I had Sister Stanger, and she had 6 weeks left. So I don't know. Were you guys out there?
After you. So I came February of the next year, 04. And then Zach came the following year, January 05.
You were gone and probably married by the time I got there.
Yeah, I did get married in 2005, so I was probably getting married the year you guys came out.
That's it.
So we cross paths with people. So, okay.
You were in my first zone in Edinburgh. So
okay. Oh yeah, because that was at almost the very end of my mission.
Yeah, that'd be right.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna look through pictures because I'm sure you had hair.
I did. Yep.
And I don't know. I'm looking at these pictures and I was like, oh my gosh, I gained 2 stone, right? I gained more on my mission. Like, just, yeah.
We all did. That's okay. We were fed well.
I gained 4 or 5. So
I'm pretty sure I ate my way through Scotland. So.
By the time I came home, I'd gained over 2 stone. So
yeah, me too. So I was like, okay, that's cool. That's cool.
I guess it's a standard thing.
Yeah, it was. I started in Aberdeen. I could not understand the language at all. And I would look at Sister Stanger and she would like nod her head. And then I would look and I would nod my head. Then people would keep talking and they would nod and I would nod. No idea what they were saying. Like, I was like, oh, and people would say, oh, you're going to Scotland. What language are they going to speak there? And I kept being like, English. But then I got out there and realized it wasn't like the English we're used to English, not Utah English.
Nope, not at all.
Yeah. So she wasn't out. She was at the very end of her mission. She trained me. She left. I don't know if like Fowler was there, Jensen, Miller, Jenkins, Mannon. I think these guys, they were all kind of towards the end of their missions when I got into Aberdeen. I don't know if you know of any of them, but
those are not names I'm familiar with.
Okay, they would have been gone. I just remember a lot of Aberdeen was. I remember being so excited to be there and walking like and overlooking the area and looking out at the beach and over these huge flats and being so excited. And then kids start, and I was like, it is so beautiful. I can't believe I'm here in Scotland. And all of a sudden we're getting like pelted with rocks and water balloons, and we're running as fast as we can, like down the stairs, hiding for cover in the flats. And I was like, welcome to Scotland.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. In Aberdeen.
Yeah, in Aberdeen. It happened again in Livingston, but people were feisty, right?
Yep.
Yes, they were. Did you guys stay in the high flat in Aberdeen?
No.
Okay, then they must have
downtown-ish area. Like
on a cobblestone road?
Uh-huh.
On Charlotte Street?
Oh, yes, maybe that is it.
Well, that's interesting because that became the Zone Leaders when I was there anyway. Became the Zone Leaders apartment later, so it's been the mission for a while. That's pretty cool.
Okay, yeah. It was really nice. I think I was there for just 6 weeks.
Okay.
So I wasn't there super long. Kind of got to know people. Like, I was asking McGowan. I was like, "Was Parashuram Uranium Sky around when you were there?" And he would walk with this presence of like he'd wear the full garb, kilt and all, furs on him, bald head shaved with a ponytail, with like the full Scottish, like kilt, like the boots up to his knees. Anyways, he'd walk around and think maybe he got baptized. I can't remember if we were the ones I can't even remember. Anyways, he smelled like lavender. He was around all the time, but I think he served there and never, ever, you knew he was coming because you could smell him from a distance.
Interesting.
So, but we also met another lady, and she was old, and she would tell us all these stories. And one day I'm sitting in the flat, and it was like 700 degrees in her apartment or in her flat. And we walked in, and she just kept telling us about everything, like the dots on her face, the lotion she would use, the body parts that were aching and that needed these lotions. And at one point I started falling asleep, and she looks over and she's like, Sister McConkie, are you sleeping? Are you snoring? I was like, nope, still awake, like opening my eyes, just dying. And she stands up, and every step she took out, she just farted out of the room in this like 700-degree apartment, just stinky and smelly. And I remember I started laughing so hard. I was like, I can't control it. I'm like, you guys, like, who are these people? And she's like, are you laughing? I'm like, no. Like, I'm like tears streaming down my face, laughing so hard at her. And
oh my gosh.
Just so terrible. So that was one of my like biggest memories of that.
In your first 6 weeks, that's an amazing memory. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was a good one. I'm trying to remember, you guys, what area I served. No, not that area. After Aberdeen, I left and went to Livingston, where I had Sister Bohr was my first companion. Then I had Sister Stevens. Sister Bohr was there, I think, for maybe 6 weeks. And then I had Sister Stevens, and she was going home from there. And we were able to baptize a guy named Andrew and got to be good friends with his family. I remember teaching them, and they would come out do you want to come over for dinner? We'd be like, sure, why not? And they'd bring out a plate of just biscuits, like an entire plate per person, just biscuits. You just get to eat all the cookies you want and soda. And then that was it. That was our dinner.
Was there milk with your biscuits?
I think there was like black currant.
Oh, that's the other thought.
Diluent juice. There we go.
Oh my goodness.
So we ate a lot of that. So figure I couldn't see my clothes, but it was okay. And in that area, I was with Elder Davis. You guys know Elder Davis? Okay.
Oh, a little bit.
Okay. Garota, Loveless. Do any of these ring about?
Yeah.
Elder Wright. I know that, is it Gilmore who was just talking about Elder Wright? We all were really good friends. Which, funny story, my mother-in-law, we became really good friends with Perry, Wright, all of those Loveless. Wright, we became friends. I talked to him after the mission, but his daughter was in her kindergarten class. So I've been in touch with him off and on. I still am friends on Instagram with him.
Wow.
Cool.
Anyways, I still run into him. So, but
His episode's coming out soon.
Oh, is it? Yay. Okay, I'm excited because I remember when he got beat up those 2 times too, and I'm like, oh, doozy.
The story's there.
Yeah. Oh, good. I'm excited. We would cram in, we would get ready for a P day, and I was always like, okay, on P day, every P day, P day is not worth it if you don't have a picture. So I was determined to see and do everything I could. And we had fun, maybe too much fun sometimes, but we would cram everyone into the elder's car, whoever could fit, way more than legally was possible. And we'd cram into the car, and then we'd drive to all you can eat Chinese buffets or pizza buffets, or we'd go over to members' houses, and Laura, they'll know who they are, but we'd go over and we would just hang out and play games and just eat until we were sick and spend a lot of time eating. And we ended up baptizing a guy named Stephen there, who I still kind of keep in touch with. I remember he quit smoking, which was a big testimony. I remember walking around and they had asked us to fast for the 24 hours. And I remember thinking, 24 hours is so long to not eat food. Not gonna lie, I still don't like to fast for that long. But we're like, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to see what happens. And so we had fasted for the 24 hours. And I think I was with Bo at the time. And we met Stephen. We worked on him like quitting smoking, and eventually it turned out to be a really like spiritual experience as we met him, and we were able to baptize him, and I've kind of kept in touch over the years. So
That's great.
That's cool.
yeah. So that was a really neat experience in Livingston. I'm trying to think. After Livingston, I went to Kirkcaldy. There I had Sister Kippen and Sister McGowan. Sister Kippen I served with for, I think, 6 weeks as well. And then I had Sister McGowan, and I trained her for the 6 weeks. And we obviously got along really well. Sister Kippen, we got along. Have you had her on yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
I've been in touch with her, so maybe in the future.
Okay. We got along and had fun, and then then I had McGowan, and we got along really well, and obviously we've kept in touch all these years. And there was Elder Marble and Elder Jones were in that area with us. I don't know if you know who any of them are. It seems like they were kind of at the end of their mission too. So maybe we've been after you guys.
Yeah,
Definitely after me.
Leonard and Grant. Grant, a few people have talked about Grant. So I don't know if they're past you, but a lot of people, I know the people who served with him.
Yeah. We're talking to Rory on Sunday, so we're looking forward to talking to him.
Okay. Oh, that'll be fun.
Yep.
They were so fun. We all had so much fun together, and we would go and, just kind of adventure. My mind's kind of going blank as I like sit and think of all the things that we did. Our
favorite P-Day trip from that area was to go up to St. Andrews.
Yeah.
Right there.
I remember going to St. Andrews, and I remember going to put my pants on, and I remember that they didn't really fit, and I wanted to cry. So at that point, I was so fat I couldn't even wear my fat clothes that I had brought from home.
The P-Day pants no longer fit.
I couldn't fit my fat pants anymore. And that's where I had the big Grant, I think it was, who teased me that I had this huge rat's nest because my hair was long and it like got in a huge snarl, and I looked like a abominable snowman. I had lost my coat in the very first area, and so somebody gave me one of their coats. So I wore multiple coats and multiple layers, and it was freezing, and I just layered up and looked like a scary snowman, really, like as bad as you can look as a sister, and that's what we looked like.
So did your hair just kind of get tangled in all your layers, and then it kind of just said, we're just going to sit above the collar and bunch itself up?
Yeah, it just knotted. It just was one giant knot that didn't come out. And a member in the church even actually made a comment. They're like, Sister McConkie, what's wrong with your hair? I was like, I don't know. It's just a big nest. It was it was like a rat could live in there. I was like, I will brush it. I promise. I was brushing it. It was the snow and the combination of it all. But a lot of my mission, so my last name seems like it, because I was McConkie, it should have worked, right? People should have gotten that it was McConkie. But my whole mission, people would start to be like, Sister McCookie, Sister Mecahuni, Sister McClukey, Sister McCooney. And by the end, I would knock on a door. I'd stand there, would ring the buzzer. I'd be like, oh, this is Sister McGowan. I'm Sister And they're looking on, Sister, are you Sister Mc-? And they just trail off. And I, instead of like holding it together by the end, just laughed in their faces, like tears streaming down my face, laughed in their faces. Thought it was so funny.
Oh my gosh.
I couldn't help myself. So I got that all the time, and nobody got McConkie right. And I'm like, there's McConaughey's everywhere. Not McConkie. It was a mess.
Sister McCookie.
Yeah. Sister McCookie. Sister McDoodle. Sister McKinney. Sister, I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
it was terrible. So that's okay. So then I spent the time in Kirkcaldy, which was great. And left there and went to Edinburgh. And there I had Sister Heap, and I had Sister Miller. And Sister Heap, I heard her. She was really quiet, but we actually got on pretty good, and so we had a fun time. And same with Sister Miller. And we had Sister Breach, I think, had been there before, and we baptized Tina and Butler Makadangi. And actually, I've just like gotten back in touch and Facebooked them, and they're still, as I see, active, or they're still like firm believers in Christ. And so I've like reached out to Tina, and they were from Africa, and I'm like, hey, I don't know if you remember. She's like, of course I remember you. You brought me to Christ. How could I forget you? I'm like, well, yes. And so I've kind of been in touch with them just a little bit.
Awesome.
That's great.
Yeah. And then Ian McClure, I don't know if any,
Yeah, I've heard that name.
yeah, he would call me HRH Princess Mac, because he thought I was really cheeky, and like that I was like a princess, and I did whatever I wanted to do. But I obeyed the rules. I was obeying the rules. And so we would go to dinner at his house, and he'd make us chili all the time. He was so great. We became really, really good friends with him. And in that area, I don't know if you've had Elder Slater on, Greg Slater. He served in that area, but his parents live just a few houses away from me right now. So I knew him. My cousin was married to his brother. So I knew him going out. And so he was in that area. So it was so fun. Rich Dunn I grew up with him. I've known him my whole life as well. And so he, I think, was in that area, or at least we'd see each other. And then Elder Carish is actually my second cousin. So he was around there in Edinburgh, and then, or in Livingston, I think, was it Edinburgh? And then Davies? Was it Davis? Might be Davis. And he was like best friends with Dunn and Carish, but we all went to the same high school. Like we all lived within minutes of each other.
I was Carish's last companion, so that's how I know that group.
Okay, so you're on the very end of that.
Yeah.
So funny. It was such a small world. And then Elder Croshaw, my best friend, that's his cousin. So
you got to help us get all these people on.
I know. So we've made all these connections, and we knew everybody. Like Elder Dunn, I was laughing out loud at some of his stories with Brenlow about how he'd like fall asleep, which I totally did. So I get it. I was laughing about it. So funny. Vertigum was in that area. Gilmore, or they would see them. One time we went and played soccer, or football. Their football, our soccer. And I remember, I think it was Rittman, and I kicked the ball as hard as I could. And it hit him straight in the face, and he fell down flat. And he just laid there. I don't even know when he got back up, and then just kept walking. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. But we had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun in that area. Bredlow, and I think he was with Drew, and we would go we'd go to the Catholic convent, and we'd chop up the fruit or the vegetables for the soup. So there was a lot of people. Like, what I realize is you guys as elders are around so many missionaries doing so much with each other. But as sisters, there's so few of us. So it'd only be like 2 in an area. and 2 in this area and 2 in this area. So when we would get with everybody, it was like a party because you'd be like, oh, there's other people, not just my companion. And so with
Yeah.
Sister Keith and Miller, we would go and play soccer on the beach, go hiking, and just have a lot of fun, really.
That's awesome.
Okay. I'm trying to think. So when I was in that area, I was getting close to the end. And I remember at that point thinking that I could have gone home and I wanted to go home to transfer early. My best friend was getting married, who I've been friends with my whole life, still best friends with her. And I remember being like, okay, I'm going to come home in August and then you can get married and I'll be at your wedding. And I've been here and everything's been great and I loved it. And I remember waking up one morning and getting ready to leave the flat, and that overwhelming feeling came to me and was like, it's not going to work. Something's not going to work. You're not going to make it home. And we were getting ready to walk to the library. And I remember just already kind of being in tears, like that feeling of like, the Lord was like telling me, this isn't going to work how you think it's going to work out. And I remember getting into the library and opening up my computer, and she's like, I had the feeling of like, I should stay long. Like I shouldn't cut this short. The 6 weeks I was in between the transfers, I should stay. And so I knew if I stayed, I would miss it. And so I remember opening up this computer and she's like, I'm getting married. I'm going to school. I need to get married before school starts. So are you going to make it home? And I remember writing back and be like, I feel like I'm supposed to stay longer, and just crying like I'm going to miss this. It was a big deal to me at the time. We've been best friends since our birth, like forever. And I just had this feeling I was supposed to stay. So I remember President Brinzen calling because the transfers were coming up, and he's like, do you like to swim? And I was like, sure, why not, right? And he sent me to Orkney, and they had elders there forever, except Samus was there, I think, with breech right before. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'm supposed to stay longer, and I'm going to Orkney. And in Orkney, I had Samus as my companion, and we had a great time. We had so much fun. There was no elders up there. We never got off the island. We never went down to zone conference or anything. And we had the mission. We were like the mission. We had like trying to think, like the TV in there and all the movies. And so on P-Day, on P-Day Eve, we'd call it, we'd pull our mattresses out to the main room and we'd have a big sleepover with just us, of course, because there was nobody else. So we'd pull them out and we'd get cucumbers and we'd like put them on our eyes and put face masks on our eyes and have sleepovers and watch. I think we watched like, what is it? The Prodigal Son. I think we watched that as a movie night. That was like as rebellious as we were going to get. And so we would like jump on our mattresses and we would dance and we had a great time. And she told the story, I think we were driving down the freeway or down the highway, and the bonnet flew up and hit. We couldn't put it back down. So we had to pull over, and we're like gale force winds pushing this bonnet back down till somebody pulled over. And I'm sure we looked like homeless, like missionaries, and this guy helps us, and we get back to the flat, the poor mission cars. We get back to the flat and we open up the door, and the wind takes the door and it slams the door 180 degrees and just slams into the front and dents the front of the car. And I was like,
oh my gosh,
we're not going to get the door shut again. Slowly got it back and just shut it, and all the good and good driving, and it was great. We had a lot of fun, and there we met Patrick, who ended up being probably the greatest experience of my mission. Besides the other people we had met and taught and baptized, and all the lessons I had learned, Patrick was like I think Samus had said had been a bishop who had been excommunicated. And we were able to keep teaching him, and my hair actually turned green in Orkney because this goes back to Patrick, because Orkney's not very big, and so there's a chlorine plant that's right down in Kirkcaldy that like chlorinates all the water for the island. But because they put the chlorine in it to like keep it clean, my hair just soaked in, because it's so blonde, soaked in all of the green, like the chlorine, and it just started turning green. So every time we go to Patrick's house, he would call me Kermit and set up a placemat for me with Kermit the Frog and everything. So instead of like Sister McConkie, it was Kermit. And so finally I was like, I'm getting ready to go home and my hair is green. Like it is a green tint like I have swam all summer. So we convince them, we start researching, and we're like, I've heard that if you buy beer, the beer will wash out the chlorine and then we'll just wash it and then it will be okay. So we convince him as we're teaching him and like trying to get him to be baptized. And we're like, don't let anybody see you. We know we're teaching you and we know that that's against the word of wisdom, but you just go buy us a 6-pack. Like, okay. And so he buys us a 6-pack and we like sneak it in like our bags. We take it home. Like no one will ever know. And if they do, we're dead meat. And we put it in the sink and we start washing my hair with beer and we like put it up in the towel and it didn't work. It didn't work. My hair was still green. It was what it was. And we never got caught and we're okay, but we tried it. We attempted it. So for all those with hair, don't ever try that. It didn't work. It was funny.
It was the wrong kind of beer.
Wrong kind of beer. The Scottish beer wasn't strong enough.
Oh gosh. I asked you this before, Catherine, and you had mentioned the service on the pig farm and your attempt. Can you go over that again?
Oh, no. I don't think yeah, no, we weren't going to do that.
Did you guys not go at all?
No.
I think that was Samus who went.
It was
once.
Samus, and Samus decided she wasn't going to do it, and so we were like, no, we're not going to do it.
Okay. I couldn't remember.
You served in Orkney.
I did, yeah.
Okay, so after we left, they closed the area. So we baptized Patrick in a little pool, like in an old folks center pool. They didn't have a chapel there.
Right.
I remember baptizing him and walking out and feeling like we were on top of the world. Like, and at that moment I knew this is why I stayed. This was like the cherry on top of the mission. The spirit was so strong. I was ready to tell everybody. Like, it was incredible. And we went on then. We were really good friends with Mally and Ann. I don't know if you ever met them.
Sounds familiar.
They'd host a Bible group every Friday night that we would go to. And we became really good friends with them. I still actually keep in touch with them a little. And they never joined the church, but he was by far the most religious, like knowledgeable, Christ-like person that I had met, probably on the mission. Amazing people. And I remember we'd go there and people would put notes in his door and tell him, say, why are you still seeing those sister missionaries? Like, why are you still talking to them? And at one point they'd say, why do they walk around and they're so happy all the time? Like, why are they so happy? They were so annoyed that we were so happy. And they were like, I don't know why. And they're like, you shouldn't be visiting with them. They're like, what is wrong with them? And we were just happy.
It's a great compliment.
Well, you're happy people.
Yeah, I remember that in Kirkwall. Like everybody knew everybody, obviously. It's just such a small place. And so the game of telephone that went around was very, very quick to get in people's ears. And we had a couple of instances where we were teaching people and they wouldn't make commitments to progress in what we were teaching them because they knew that they would get questioned. And it was sad because some of them had really spiritual experiences with missionaries, whether it was others or myself. And I was just like, man, how can you feel like that much under a microscope? Because I'd never experienced that in my life. But obviously, in a small village like that, it's understandable. So I can understand exactly what they were going through when it came to, hearing people say, "Why are you speaking with so and so?" And it was really a tough place. But it's great to hear that you had success there.
Yeah. It was. They did. Everybody knew everybody. And we'd go to the Bible study groups with them, and everyone would talk to us, so they knew of the gospel. And I think Mally, he definitely had felt the Spirit. He knew it was true, but because his wife wasn't going to join, he wasn't going to join, which was sad. And then we met another guy named John, who actually, when I got married, he sent me $500.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like, he's an old guy, super, like active in his church. And there was that main church in Kirkwall, like up on the hill, I think is
Yep.
Presbyterian.
I think you're right. Yeah. Like Church of Scotland, maybe.
Yes. Probably. And he was active in it. And so he's like, I know it's true. My wife has died on the other side. As soon as I die, I'll join the church. I was like, okay. Like, that's how their community worked, right? They're like, I can't join the church.
Yep, exactly.
So, yeah. So we became good friends with him. We would go and chat and teach him things. But yeah, he sent me all this money. And then when he died, his kids, and same with Patrick's, they contacted. When Patrick died of I think it was a brain tumor or brain cancer, his kids contacted and said, we just wanted to let you know how much he loved you guys, and that he's passed away.
Wow.
And we were really close with them.
Those are what the mission is all about, right? Is that you had that much of an impact on someone that they told their progenitors about you. Like that's amazing.
Yeah. It was a really, really neat experience. It was one of those, it was definitely stuck with me and has made me, it was the first time, I mean, you spend your whole life, like I spent my whole mission just putting my trust in the Lord, right? You're like, do I even have this much faith? But at that point, watching like the Lord's hand in my life and work through it was amazing. And it stuck with me to watch, be like, I know that God's aware because I've had these, like, I feel like there's only a few experiences in your life, a handful of experiences that will help you to always be able to like have that foundation of the gospel and to be able to draw on those when life gets a little more bumpy and you start to question more or life around you gets harder. That was one that's always been a very big foundation of my life, was being able to baptize, see him, be a part of his life, and be a part of those people's lives in Orkney. And those were the 6 weeks that I wanted to go home, or just to be home for everything else that I'd left behind. So it really changed me.
Yeah. That's amazing to be able to look back and recognize all of that too.
After Orkney, that was the end. And then I was getting ready to go home, and I have to say, like, when I was on my mission, at the very end of my mission, my parents picked me up, and my parents had gotten divorced while I was right before my mission, or while I was on my mission, and then got remarried, which was already crazy all in itself. Like the Spirit, it was just a crazy experience. But at the very end of my mission, my sister had written me a letter and said, I didn't want to tell you this to upset you when you were on your mission, but I left the church. And I was so thrown off. She had gone on a mission. I'm married in the temple, super, super strong when I left for my mission. But somewhere in those 18 months, life took a different turn. She had a conflict with some of the church doctrine, and she's like, I'm leaving the church. And nobody wanted to tell you that because nobody wanted to distract you. And so I came home pretty devastated. I remember my parents came to pick me up. We went to see all the areas. And I just remember being kind of gutted, like just so hurt when my life had been spent doing this as a mission. But fast forward, so I had gone for my mission. She left the church for the last 20 years. But about a year ago, she was going through a divorce, and she was like, I was like, we had just bought a house. Another one of those moments, the same as Orkney, of we're going to buy this house and we're going to help our family members. There's a reason we're buying this house. So we buy this house. My sister contacts me. I was like, you can move in. We've got a kitchen in the basement. We have plenty of room. You can stay here. She comes in, moves in, and she is at this point so far from active, but I had the family proclamation on my wall, and she starts reading it. And I don't want to say I was embarrassed, but kind of I know how you feel about all of this information, but this is how we feel. Fast forward, she ends up basically her divorce was hard. She gets a patriarchal blessing. She's like, I think I'm going to come back to church. I read this family proclamation. I watched how the gospel worked in your life and with your husband. I'm going to come back to church. And we are just floored, 20
Wow.
years of inactivity. She's like, I'm going to get my patriarchal blessing, and I want to go back to the temple. I was like, what? And going back to the mission, it was another one of those moments that the foundation that had been laid on my mission I got to see God's hand over and over work through her in her life, prepare her and prepare me. And as angry as I was, I let it go. I still was really loving. I was like, I'll love you regardless. If you're part of the church, not part of the church, it doesn't matter to me. I still love you. We're family. But I watched God's hand work through her life, and it was as impactful as a mission was watching that. And fast forward, she goes on a few months later. The divorce goes final, or goes about to final. She gets diagnosed with cancer. And I was like, as if your life couldn't be any more crazy. She gets cancer. But at that point, this was last year, she had then gone back to church, and she now goes to church goes to the temple every single week in this last year, more than anyone I know. But it went back to that foundation, those little things to watch God's hand is working all the time in your life. And when you can actually stop to recognize it. So I've been able to recognize, I'm like, I can't believe that happened. You just happened to do this, and you go to a doctor's appointment, and then they don't have room for you, and you happen to be where you're meant to be. And it happened to work out that you got this scan and happened to figure out. And I started to realize there aren't coincidences. God's working. He's making a plan far before and far bigger. And now her ex is going back. And long story, all these people are around her 20 years later after inactivity. I'm like, you just never know the plan, you guys.
Yeah.
But a lot of it was from that Orkney experience that I was like, oh, I can see this. I can see how this is working in my life. So
Wow. That's
anyway,
incredible.
it was crazy.
A great story.
Yeah.
So you started your mission under President Wilkinson, right?
Yes.
And do you have memories of either President Wilkinson, President Brains, or wives that you'd like to share?
President Wilkinson, I remember the very first of my mission, he stood up at the very first zone conference, and he's like, well, brothers and sisters, all the apostate missionaries have gone home now. I was like, what? And he's like, yep, we're on to a new start. We've sent the apostate missionaries home. The mission is clean, and we're ready for a new go. I was like, okay, I didn't know that was possible. I guess people had been hot tubbing in some of the baptismal fonts. There was a lot of riffraff going on. And then another elder stood up, and he's like, I haven't baptized a person. I'm not sure about this, but good luck. I was like, okay, I guess welcome to 18 months.
Wow.
He was great. He's from St. George. I've never really been in touch with him since, but then we had brother and sister Brains. And I I can't say I was very close with them. I kind of was independent and really pretty happy and got along just fine, didn't have any major issues, so I didn't really need to like contact him much. But he was really great. And Sister Brains, I remember for the first time I tried waffles with banana and syrup and peanut butter on them. That was the very first time that I tried it. And I remember Sister Brains like pulling all the sisters together and would have like sister conferences. And she wanted us to teach the other sisters, like, basically, she was like, you guys you look really ratty and you look terrible and your clothes don't look very good. And can we like step it up a notch and teach the other sisters, like maybe like how to brush their hair? Not that the other sisters looked bad, probably more because we did. Like, quite honestly, I think me and Sister Heath were in charge, like, of making teaching the sisters maybe how to look a little nicer because we just looked like drowned rats a lot. And so better, I guess. I don't know. We thought maybe that was a good idea. I don't know if it helped, but that was my memory of her and her pig nose like everybody and her loud personality and just funny and maybe like, I don't want to say inappropriate, but just kind of blunt. Kind of blunt. She was going to say it how it is.
She was very blunt. That's so true.
And we're like, oh, you don't like the way we look? And she's like, no, you don't look good. Okay, well, I guess we'll try a little harder. I'm like, we're cheap, right? We don't have any money. We're just going to buy whatever we can buy. So that's kind of my memories of them.
That's great.
That's about it.
Anybody else you want to shout out that you know a lot of missionaries we don't know, and you've already named a great bunch, and you're going to help us get them on the podcast because they're hard to contact.
Yeah, I'm looking at your list of companions. We've talked to the back half of your companionships, but not the front half.
I know. It feels like it was two different missions to me. I'm like, the front half seems so long ago. In the back half, I'm like, oh, that wasn't quite like, how old are we? So I'll try to find some. But I know Stevens, I don't think you've talked to her. Boar, Kippen, I
said, I've reached out to her, but yeah, the others, Sister Stevens, Sister Boar, Sister Stanger, are all people that are above my pay grade anyway.
Okay. Well, if I can get a hold of them, I'll let you know. But a lot of the others, it's been fun to hear them too. So it's fun to hear Redla recently, Bhutan, like, I don't know, Dunn. Did you ever do Dunn?
He's on there.
Okay, I'm going to go back and listen to all these guys. Karish, I think you did Karish, but I haven't heard him.
Not yet.
Okay.
I'm working on him.
Okay. Well, it'll be fun to hear everybody. So thank you guys.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah,
and
it was great.
Calling your husband in clutch to get you logged in.
I know. He's great. I was like, I just need a link to click and then I'll be okay. I started my mission with Sister Heat brought out the first iPod it was at the time. And she's like, I've got loaded music. And I was like, what is that? It was music on it. I had tapes, like the old school, my first Sony, like I listened to a tape on a tape player and had point and click cameras. She brought an iPod out. Revolutionary. So I'm still learning too.
It's a great time to be alive.
Yeah,
it is.
Well,
yes.
We really appreciate it, and we appreciate your service and how things are going for you now. It's great to hear about.
Yeah, we love you. We're glad that you're one of our sisters in the Scotland Edinburgh Mission. So thank you for coming on and sharing your story with us.
Well, thank you so much for all you do, and we'll just keep listening. It's fun to reminisce and have all these memories. So come back.
All right.
Okay. Well, thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Catherine.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.